There is one weapons platform that quietly took over the Special Operations Armory over the last decade. And most people outside of that world have no idea how fast it happened. From SOCOM's personal defense weapon contract to Delta Force's primary rifle, the SIG, MCX, and MPX family didn't just compete for those contracts. It won all of them. And somewhere along the way, Hollywood started paying attention too. These firearms have shown up in the biggest action franchises and TV shows. But of all the screen appearances this family has made, there's one that stands above the rest. One movie that gave a specific SIG its cinematic debut. A weapon so new that the US Army had only just formally named it. But first, let's start at the beginning of the family tree. In SEAL Team Season 4, Episode 13, titled Do No Harm, most of Bravo Team are armed with suppressed SIG MCX Rattlers. They deploy to Nigeria on a mission to extract a doctor from a Boko Haram-controlled hospital. The Rattler is the most compact member of the MCX family and was built at the specific request of Special Operations Units. It features a 5.5-inch barrel, shorter than any M4 variant ever produced. Unlike the M4, which uses a direct impingement gas system that vents hot gas directly back into the receiver, the Rattler uses a combined gas piston system and dual recoil springs, a design that runs significantly cleaner and reduces jamming, especially critical when operating a suppressed weapon at close range. SOCOM explicitly requested a weapon chambered in 300 blackout because it delivers more stopping power when launched from a short barrel and offers improved performance over 9mm offerings in the subsonic range. The Rattler delivers that in a package that can be concealed under a jacket. In May 2022, the MCX Rattler was selected as the winner of SOCOM Commercial Personal Defense Weapon Contract and will be procured in both 5.56 and 300 blackout, with SL series suppressors included. The next generation of the MCX took everything the Rattler proved and rebuilt it into a harder, more refined platform, one that ended up in the hands of a real European counter-terrorism unit depicted on screen. In Lioness Season 2, Episode 1, CIA operative Joe McNamara and her Special Activities Center team are depicted carrying the MCX Spear LT as their primary assault rifle. The Spear LT is the third generation of the MCX. Key upgrades over the Virtues include a significantly lighter handguard, a slimmer body profile, and a fully ambidextrous bolt catch and release. The Spear LT was introduced in 2022 and is available in barrel lengths all the way up to 16 inches, giving it a genuinely wide operational range across different mission profiles. In 2023, it was confirmed that a variant of the Spear LT was adopted by the United States Army's Delta Force as the close support assault weapon to replace their HK-416s. That is a significant milestone. The HK-416 had been Delta Force's primary rifle for nearly 2 decades. The fact that Delta replaced it with a third-generation MCX speaks to how far this platform had evolved from its 2011 origins. At one point in the show, it's mentioned that the team will switch from 5.56 to 300 blackout for a specific mission, a detail that reflects the real-world modularity of the platform and the kind of technical writing that sets Lioness apart from most military television. But the most significant screen appearance in this entire family's history belongs to a different version, one that arrived on film carrying a round designed to defeat body armor that no previous NATO rifle could penetrate.
We have to talk about where precisely it came from. So of course from the NGSW program with the XM5 and the Spear, but beyond that it came from a high-level SOCOM solicitation within the United States Armed Forces. And that was asking for a variety of contributions to see which rifle they would end up choosing. So the MCX Gen 2, what we have right here, is a good firearm. However, she's a little bit heavy, so she needed to go to fat camp. So that's precisely what they did. Oh yeah, well, fat camp is what you call when you're fat and then you go to fat camp to become skinny. Okay. You could say skinny too.
Skinny camp.
Skinny camp. In any case, that is what they did at SIG, is they shaved all of the weight they possibly could. And we will give you some shots here of these two rifles side by side so you can see different places where they shaved that weight. And on the SOCOM version of those rifles, many of the steel parts were replaced with titanium to save even more weight. And many versions of those weapons were selected. And to be clear, when it came to the civilian model, which is what we have right here in the law enforcement model, those titanium parts were replaced with steel because titanium is extremely expensive. So that really didn't make sense to have a 10K rifle when it came to the civilian market. Now, the rifle that we have right here is actually very close, if not identical, to the rifle that was selected by the SAS. So we have a really good weapon here with a lot of improvements that have been made. The question is, are these improvements that are good? Were they necessary? Does this make it a better rifle than the Gen 2? Does it make it a better choice than the vetted and tried and true AR-15? In this case, we have a URGI right here, which is current SOCOM issue. We will see as we talk about this rifle, as we always do, which is tip to butt. So getting into the Spear LT, it is a 5.56 caliber weapon, also 300 black, as well as 7.62 by 3.9. It is short stroke gas operated, and it is fed from a detachable box magazine, which we have right here. A lot of the improvements definitely centered around some compatibility issues, as well as some ammo changing issues, such as when you're changing from 5.56 to 7.62 by 39, which is where you see a lot of the bolt changes. But before we get into that, we're going to do it how we always do it. We're going to go tip to butt. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to start right at the muzzle. So the muzzle is both a good and my first complaint about the weapon. My biggest complaint about this is that we have a 3-prong flash hider, which I'm typically a big fan of. However, the prongs on the Spear Light are very short. It ends up being not a really good flash suppressor at all. You compare that to something like the Surefire, which we have right here, like a 3 or a 4 prong, and it performs very well due to the length of the tines. In the case of the Light, it's just too short, so you end up getting a lot more flash than you should otherwise get. So if you are not planning on running the SIG suppressor, I would definitely recommend changing it. However, the good thing about this muzzle device is that the new SIG suppressors are actually incredible. And so I do understand it in that context. So here's where it becomes fortunate and unfortunate that we're getting a military type rifle, because this really wasn't meant to be shot without the suppressor on it. So when we talk about the suppressor design, it's a very good. It's a 3D printed Inconel suppressor. Now it is both a taper thread as well as a locking mechanism. This is a problem I've always had with the taper mounts on different suppressors, is just how many ever times people tell me that it's impossible, I've always had my taper mounted suppressors walk off. They've never been quite secure. So the addition of a lock in the case of the SIG suppressor is absolutely needed, especially when we're talking about a military rifle. The SIG suppressors are completely focused around signature reduction, which is reduction of your muzzle flash, a little bit of your sound signature. The point is it's going to make it harder to either pinpoint where the weapon is being fired from, or to mitigate a lot of the blast and flash that you'd have indoors while doing CQB or something like that, because this particular weapon is more of an assaulter's weapon. Now there is of course a 16-inch variant. In any case, the suppressor does a very good job. I am a very big fan of the SIG suppressor. I am happy with my SIG product. We have pros and cons. It's not a great muzzle device on its own. However, as a suppressor host, it is an excellent design. That's where I'm a little bit conflicted about it. Do you want to buy a whole new suppressor to fit the system? I would almost recommend it because I do like the suppressors that much, but this is something for you to decide as a consumer. Consume. From the muzzle device, we go back to the barrel. The barrel is the heart of any weapon. This is where it becomes difficult for me, is you have to understand that there is very recent evidence coming out from NSW Crane on what barrel is going to be best. There is some very new information on different barrel treatments, different types of barrel metals being used, and the type of barrel that we currently consider the best, I consider a cold hammer forged barrel to currently be the gold standard. might be changing in the near future. We're waiting for that information to be fully released and fleshed out. As of this video, however, the cold hammer forged barrel remains king in my mind. Now, the SIG does use a cold hammer forged barrel. It is a nitride coating. It is a very good barrel. What's good about the cold hammer forged barrels is that they have incredible barrel life, especially when you talk about a weapon that's going to be fired full auto. And they last for a very long time. And it's a little bit harder to see when you're looking through here, but it is not a lightweight profile barrel. It is kind of in between. I'd almost put it at somewhere around a B.A. Hansen kind of profile. And I like that quite a bit. I'm not a big fan of a lightweight barrel on a fighting rifle. I like kind of that more medium contour, and this really satisfies my monkey brain as far as what I like to see on a good fighting gun, whatever you want out there. And this pretty much brings us to the end of the Spear Light. These first reviews are difficult because, we're among the first to really put a lot of rounds on this rifle. So we have shot this rifle till it's red hot. We have the high 4,000s on this gun. It'll probably be 5,000 by the time this review is released, but I think the true test of a rifle is going to be military service and how it handles it and how it handles just getting a train run on it. But from everything that I've seen from this particular weapon, I really do understand what SIG is doing, and that is being, in typical SIG fashion, extremely aggressive in capturing different markets. I think we can all see the writing on the wall with the SIG Spear and, .277 Fury or 6.8 by 5.1. It's a large round. You're sacrificing a lot of carrying capability, and the larger military probably is not going to switch to it. This will probably be a close combat weapon for, the guys who are actually in those close combat roles. But that leaves a big market open, which is what 5.56 rifle is going to end up picking that up. I think that is maybe the true purpose of really kind of pushing forward the Spear Light. And I think that's eventually what it's going to be marketed as a replacement for the M4. And for countries that are adopting 5.56 or going to new 5.56 rifles, I think this will be the gun that they'll likely put forward. And to be clear, it is a very, very good weapon. We'll probably be using it for a long time on this channel until a replacement comes along. I like it quite a bit. As far as, is it worth it? That really depends. If you already have a good 5.56 gun, I don't think you need to upgrade. If you're looking to get into a 5.56 gun and you have some money to spend, 100%, if you're not going to go with an AR-15, the MCX is kind of a no-brainer in my mind. So you can't make a bad decision there. Of course, it's going to cost you more than your typical AR-15 as a quick note. And are you getting that much more performance? I think with the suppressor usage, yes, you are, but ultimately it might be a wash depending on how many rounds you end up firing. I do think this will end up being a popular rifle. I think it is a natural evolution of the MCX. I can see how frustrating it is for a lot of people who were early adopters of the Virtus, and now we have a new version of the MCX. I understand that frustration very much. Unfortunately, sometimes that's the way it goes with innovation. At the very least, they're not doing what FN did with the SCAR, which was come out with a great rifle and then just never update it with the times. Never make it suppressor ready or anything like that. I think that was absolute insanity. So I will give it to SIG. They are updating the rifles, they're updating them with the times, and even better is with all that money they're getting from their government contracts, they are turning around with those guns and releasing them directly to the civilian world. So all that government research now at your doorstep. So that is pretty cool. So thank you, SIG, for that. That is pretty sick. Yeah, mega base, except for, changing versions every couple of years. But other than that, a very good rifle.